Have you ever met a child who seemed years beyond their age? A kid who speaks with unusual wisdom, handles difficult situations with surprising calm, or shows empathy that even some adults lack. These children stand out, and there's a reason why. Psychology has identified specific characteristics that appear consistently in children who mature faster than their peers. And understanding these traits can help us recognize, support, and nurture these remarkable young minds. Today, we're exploring 5 rare characteristics that psychology reveals about children who mature very quickly. Some of these might surprise you, and by the end of this video, you'll understand what truly sets these children apart. Let's dive in. The first characteristic: heightened emotional awareness. The first characteristic that psychologists consistently observe in early maturing children is heightened emotional awareness. These children possess an unusual ability to recognize, understand, and name their own emotions, as well as the emotions of others around them. While most children their age might simply say, "I'm sad," or "I'm mad," these kids can articulate nuanced feelings. They might say, "I feel disappointed because I expected something different," or "I think she's acting angry, but she's actually hurt inside." This emotional intelligence doesn't appear randomly. Research in developmental psychology suggests it often develops as an adaptation. Children who've experienced challenging family situations, who've had to navigate complex adult emotions, or who've been given responsibility early often develop this skill as a survival mechanism. Picture a 7-year-old who notices their parent is stressed after work. Instead of demanding attention, they quietly bring a glass of water and say, "You look tired, Mom. Do you want to talk about it?" This level of awareness is remarkable and indicates accelerated emotional development. But emotional awareness is just the beginning. The second characteristic reveals something even more profound about how these children process the world around them. The second characteristic: advanced perspective taking. The second rare characteristic is advanced perspective-taking ability. These children can step outside their own viewpoint and genuinely consider how situations look from another person's position. This goes far beyond basic empathy. It's the cognitive ability to understand that different people have different thoughts, beliefs, and experiences that shape how they see the world. While this skill typically develops fully in adolescence, early maturing children show it years ahead of schedule. Psychologists call this theory of mind, and when it develops early, it profoundly changes how a child interacts with others. They become natural mediators in conflicts. They understand why a friend might be acting differently. They can anticipate how their words might affect someone else. In a classroom disagreement, while other children are taking sides, the early mature child might say, "I think Jake is upset because he thought we were leaving him out, even though we didn't mean to." They're not just seeing the conflict, they're understanding the underlying motivations and feelings driving everyone's behavior. This characteristic often makes these children seem wise beyond their years, almost like little philosophers trying to make sense of human behavior. But there's a third characteristic that often goes unnoticed, yet it's perhaps the most telling sign of accelerated maturity. The third characteristic: preference for meaningful conversation. The third characteristic is a strong preference for meaningful, substantive conversation over typical child play or small talk. These children often feel out of place with peers their own age. They're not interested in the latest cartoon or trending toy. Instead, they ask profound questions. Why do people hurt each other? What happens when we die? Why is there poverty? They want to discuss real issues, understand complex topics, and engage in conversations that have depth. This doesn't mean they don't play or have fun, they do. But their play often has more structure, more purpose, more storytelling. They're drawn to older children or adults who can engage them on topics that fascinate them. According to developmental psychologists, this preference emerges because these children's cognitive development is racing ahead. Their brains are ready for abstract thinking, moral reasoning, and conceptual understanding earlier than expected. The typical activities of childhood simply don't stimulate them enough. You might see this child at a family gathering, leaving the kids' table to sit quietly with the adults, listening intently to their conversations about work, politics, or life challenges. While other children are running around, they're absorbing information, asking thoughtful questions, and contributing observations that surprise everyone. This brings us to the fourth characteristic, one that often creates challenges for these children, even as it marks their exceptional development. The fourth characteristic, heightened sense of responsibility. The fourth characteristic is a heightened sense of responsibility that goes beyond what's expected for their age. These children often take on responsibilities without being asked. They worry about things that typically don't concern children, whether there's enough money, if their parents are happy, if their siblings are safe. They become caregivers, peacekeepers, and problem solvers within their families and social groups. Psychology recognizes this as both a strength and a potential burden. While responsibility and self-discipline are valuable traits, children shouldn't carry adult-sized worries. This characteristic often develops in response to necessity, when a child has had to grow up faster due to family circumstances, illness, divorce, or other challenges. Imagine a 9-year-old who sets an alarm to wake up early, prepares their younger siblings' lunch, makes sure homework is done, and keeps track of family appointments. These aren't tasks assigned to them, they've simply taken them on because they see the need and feel capable of helping. It's crucial to understand that while this maturity is impressive, it's also important that these children still have space to be children. Psychologists emphasize that even mature kids need play, freedom from adult burdens, and the security of being cared for rather than always caring for others. The fifth and final characteristic might be the most surprising of all, and it explains why these children often feel different from everyone around them. The fifth characteristic, intensified self-reflection. The fifth rare characteristic is intensified self-reflection and introspection. These children spend significant time thinking about themselves, not in a narcissistic way, but in a genuinely philosophical manner. They question their own motives, analyze their behaviors, wonder about their purpose, and contemplate their identity with a depth unusual for their age. They keep journals. They think deeply about their mistakes. They wonder why they feel certain ways. They're constantly engaged in an internal dialogue about who they are and who they want to become. Developmental psychology shows that this level of metacognition, thinking about one's own thinking, typically emerges in adolescence. When it appears earlier, it indicates accelerated cognitive and emotional development. These children are building self-awareness at a remarkable pace. A 10-year-old might say, "I noticed I get really quiet when I'm overwhelmed. I think I do that because I need time to process my feelings before I can talk about them." This level of self-understanding is extraordinary and shows a mind that's observing itself with unusual clarity. While this self-reflection builds emotional intelligence and self-control, it can also lead to overthinking and self-criticism. These children may judge themselves harshly, comparing their internal complexity to the apparent simplicity of their peers' experiences. Now that we've covered all 5 characteristics, you might be wondering, what does this all mean? And how should we respond to these exceptional children? Understanding the origins, why some children mature faster. Understanding why some children develop these characteristics helps us support them better. Research in developmental psychology points to several factors. Sometimes, early maturity is a response to environmental challenges. Children who've experienced adversity, family instability, or significant responsibility often develop these traits as adaptive mechanisms. Their circumstances required them to understand emotions, take responsibility, and think deeply about their world. Other times, it's simply how their brain is wired. Some children are born with naturally advanced cognitive abilities, heightened sensitivity, or intense curiosity that accelerates their development. It's not about one being better than the other, it's about recognizing that children develop at different rates and in different ways. Early maturity isn't always an advantage. These children often struggle with feeling different, with relating to peers, and with the burden of awareness that others their age don't carry. Imagine being 8 years old but feeling like you're 12. Your body, your social context, your legal status all say you're a child, but your mind operates at a different level. That disconnection can be isolating and confusing. So what can parents, teachers, and caregivers do to support these remarkable children? That's what we need to explore next. How to support early maturing children. Supporting children who exhibit these characteristics requires a delicate balance. First, validate their feelings and experiences. Don't dismiss their concerns as too grown up or tell them they're too young to worry about that. Their emotional reality is genuine, and dismissing it can make them feel misunderstood and alone. Second, provide intellectually stimulating activities and conversations. These children need engagement that matches their cognitive level. Books, documentaries, meaningful discussions, and creative projects can provide the mental stimulation they crave. Third, protect their childhood. Yes, they're mature, but they're still children. Make sure they have time for play, for silliness, for freedom from adult responsibilities. Don't rely on them to be the family therapist or the third parent. Fourth, connect them with appropriate peers or mentors. Sometimes these children benefit from relationships with older kids or adults who can engage with them on their level, while also modeling healthy adult behavior. Fifth, watch for signs of stress or overwhelm. Their maturity can mask struggle. Check in regularly about how they're feeling, what they're worrying about, and whether they're carrying burdens that belong to adults. As we bring this together, there's one final thing we need to understand about these exceptional young minds. The bigger picture, celebrating difference. Here's the most important thing to understand: children who mature quickly aren't better or worse than their peers, they're simply different. These 5 characteristics, heightened emotional awareness, advanced perspective taking, preference for meaningful conversation, heightened sense of responsibility, and intensified self-reflection, create a unique developmental profile. These children see the world through a different lens, and that difference should be celebrated, not pathologized. If you recognize these traits in a child you know, the greatest gift you can offer is understanding. Understand that their questions are genuine. Their concerns are real. Their need for depth is authentic. Meet them where they are, honor their experience, and help them navigate a world where they might often feel like they don't quite fit. These children will likely become the empathetic leaders, thoughtful creators, and compassionate changemakers of tomorrow. But today, they're just kids trying to make sense of a complex world with minds that are working overtime. If this video helped you understand early maturing children better, please like and subscribe. Share your own experiences in the comments. Have you noticed these characteristics in a child you know? Let's continue this conversation and build a community that supports all children, wherever they are on their developmental journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.